John before. He is a fantastic speaker, a great person, super energetic, full of life, full of love, just all around great guy. I've had the pleasure of working with him before for various webinars that I've done in my past career before COVID. So I'm glad that he is with us today. So here we go. Do you guys know someone that's been to several doctors or is still suffering with chronic health issues? Or maybe that's you. If you've answered yes to any of those, you're in the right place today. If you answered no, then you must be from outside the US or very lucky. You may know that John was a sales leader for IBM, where he led the team that closed the largest software deal in the history of IBM, worth over $1 billion. You might not know that he is a recovering overachiever, perfectionist, and a black belt in Aikido. I probably said that wrong. Sorry, John.
All good.
He is also trilingual. He speaks corporate, geek, and health. He is now living his passion as a natural health practitioner in McKinney, Texas, and is the author of the book Travel Balance that shows travelers how to stay balanced on the road. So please join me in welcoming the wonderful professional speaker, author, and the adventurous dad of twins that are in college, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. So as I mentioned to Megan earlier, I want to make sure this is as casual and comfortable as we can make it. I'm just here to share information with you. So feel free to jump in. I think Megan's made it so you can turn your microphone, unmute yourself, and just ask questions or type in the chat box. I'm going to kind of chat with her, and she'll keep me posted on what's going on in the chat box. But I want to just share insights with you on the things that I've learned in this journey, and I'm still learning. And so this has been a fascinating year for all of us in many ways, and we'll talk about some of that stuff and see what we can share together in that space. Let me get my thing there. Okay, so it's really interesting how life puts you on a completely different path than you had planned. So as Megan mentioned, how does an engineer, MBA turned IBM sales rep become a natural health doctor, and why do you care? So, as she mentioned, I worked on this really big deal in IBM, and I had the opportunity to close this $1 billion deal. And you would think as the top rep in IBM, I would be, fulfilled, but inside I wasn't. See, I had hair back then. And it's just, I'm sitting here going, what am I supposed to do? I'm like the top rep in IBM and I'm not feeling fulfilled. What am I supposed to do? So I'm praying, what is my life purpose? And it turns out the answer was I got sick, which is not at all what I had planned. And so I started going to all the different doctors, thousands of dollars scans and scopes, and they said, it's all in your head. And so I was like, I don't know if I can accept that. So I started going to chiropractors and acupuncturists, and they became my teachers and my friends, and got fascinated with the world of natural health and started feeling better. My engineering brain kicked into problem solving on the body. And so I went and pursued a doctorate in naturopathy in 2006. And the lesson I learned along the way that I think is probably most important for you is when you have your health, anything is possible. But when you don't have your health anymore, nothing else matters anymore. And I've lived through this, and man, you don't want to be in this place. And a lot of people are there today, obviously, with the things that are going on in our world. It's very challenging. And so I'm going to spend some time talking about what are the things that we can do to stay healthy. And we're going to focus on 3 different areas that I think are the most important. So really, if you look at nutrition, toxins, and stress, this is going to account for probably 95 to 99% of most chronic illness is going to fall under one of these 3 categories. So how many people have been to a naturopath? Type in the chat box or unmute or whatever. Tell me your experience. Do you even know what a naturopath is? Or have you been to an acupuncturist or chiropractor or anybody in this world? And I'll just let Reagan tell me, or you guys can jump in. Leanne is there. What do you think, Leanne? I see you.
Did I spell that? I think I spelled that wrong.
Have you been to a naturopath?
No, I did see an acupuncturist once, yes.
Perfect. It's a different world, and we're going to talk about that. How many people have been to know what a naturopath is or played in this world, Reagan?
We have some people who do not know and have not been.
Okay.
Would love to learn more, of course, and that's why we're here. So that's great.
That's why we're here.
None of the above. Have always wanted to see an acupuncturist, but don't know how to pick the right one.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's talk about it. So yeah, these are the 3 things. And as a naturopath, what we believe is that the body knows how to heal itself if we'll give it what it needs and take away the things that are hurting it. And so there's a huge, there's a whole body of work around this. And we're going to talk about, there's really 4 bodies, and we only really talk about one a lot, is the physical body that we see and feel and touch. But there's the spiritual body. There's the aspect of us that connects with source, whatever that is for you. There's the emotional body. How well do we process and have we managed our emotions? And then there's the mental body, is the 4th body. And that mental body is about how do we manage our thoughts. So I'm going to spend some time talking about that today as well. So if we look at from a nutrition perspective, gosh, when you look at products at the grocery store and you see a label like this in that very small font with a zillion different products or different chemicals in there and preservatives, how did we get here? Where did this start? So this is a question for you. This is the interactive part. Where did this begin when we started having all of these food products that, or I call them food-like products, that you get in the middle of the grocery store? Because all the products, so type in the chat box if you know the answer. When did this begin? When we started having food like this, as opposed to the beet that you see in the picture there on the right or in the background. Because when my kids were growing up, I would always talk about getting the food from the outside of the grocery store. That's where the eggs and the all of the produce is. That's the good stuff. So you go in the middle of the store, you get all these products that have been packaged and preservatives and all that stuff. So where does it start, Reagan? Do we have any insights on that?
We have 50s and 60s, maybe. We have 1920s, 80s. I was thinking maybe 40s.
Yeah, 40s. We started after World War II is when it really kicked in, because we created this meals ready to eat, these little packaged foods for the troops that we would send over to them in World War II, which is important. So you'd have to package those things up so that they would survive the trip and last and have some longevity, shelf life kind of thing. And so after the war, the food companies really latched onto that idea and put in all of these preservatives in the food so they can have fabulous shelf life, which is great for profits, but not so great for our bodies, because our body doesn't know how to process this stuff. So we've got to figure out how do we get, it's basically about, there's these cells in the body, think about them as little balls, and there's trillions of these things in our body. What we need to do is get the nutrition into each of those cells. The cells do their work, metabolism, and then they spit out, the byproducts. And then what are the toxins that gunk things up in the middle? But how do we get the right nutrition in there? And the right nutrition, of course, comes in the form of what we're eating primarily, which is, fats and carbohydrates and proteins. And God, I remember the days when I didn't even know what the difference was between all those things. And it's not important that you do. What's important is that you have a balance of the good kinds and what your body really needs in the cells of the body. So when we look at moving from this thing where you have the package into what grows, when we get things that grow, ideally what we need for our cells to be happy is the energy of the sun, believe it or not. If we could look at the sun, we could absorb that energy. That's what we need. Our body, unfortunately, we can't just do that directly. Some people can. But what we do is our friends, the plants, absorb that energy of the sun through their little plant bodies with photosynthesis, and they pull in the nutrients from the soil and then the rainwater and the water from the earth, and they put all that together into their little plant bodies in the form of fruits and vegetables that we can eat and nourish our bodies. So what we need is the energy of the sun, and I'm always talking about having a sponsor slide. I think I just added one because tomorrow I'm going to be speaking at an event, and I added a sponsor slide. My main sponsors are the earth and the sun. They don't pay a lot as sponsors go, but they do support me quite a bit, and they're really foundational. And for you, what's important is they're free, and we just have to use them. So eating fruits and vegetables is key. Ideally, what we want to do is eat organic where possible. Why is that? Why do we want to eat organic? Type in the chat box or come off of mute and tell me why organic is so important when we're in this world. And I'm going to give you one insight on that. And I'll let you guys type in there a couple of answers. You can just tell me when you get them, Reagan. What do we think?
Yeah, pesticides, lack of chemicals in general.
Yeah, that's the big one, is they're spraying everything. And so when people talk about gluten and, oh my God, wheat and gluten is so bad for you, and it is, it's not the best, but unfortunately the bigger part of that is what they're spraying on the wheat, which is something called glyphosate or Roundup. And that's that chemical that really kills off all these bugs, but it also kills off the bugs in us. So it's kind of like taking an antibiotic whenever you eat. Not a good thing. So one of the big things that is important from an organic perspective is that the plants are trying to stay alive. And so they create plant compounds called polyphenols and phytonutrients that are there to help protect them from bugs and critters. And as they are not sprayed with, fertilizers and things, and they're grown organically, they have to be stronger to survive. So they create more of those plant compounds, and that's what we need to be healthy. So when we eat those organic plants, then we are going to get the benefits from that as well. So that's why it's so important to do that. But the key here, and people always kind of net out because they get impatient. Tell me what's the worst thing I can eat and the best things I can eat, and just net it out for me. Turns out that sugar is one of the worst things that you can eat, and we're going to spend time talking about that today. It's 8 to 10 times more addictive than cocaine, and it unfortunately knocks down your immune system dramatically. So it feeds the bad guys. There's really no nutritional value, but it's just very addictive for our bodies. And so even when we're looking at the sugar, natural sugars like fructose in fruit, we have to be careful. So I'm not a fan of diets because that implies a short-term thing. I'm more a fan of lifestyle choices that we make that are going to keep us going long-term. But if you have to pick a pattern, I think the antifungal or keto or Mediterranean diet is going to be your best bet because they limit sugars, they limit grains and dairy, and they focus in on eating the whole foods. So we'll spend time talking about that. And again, if you have questions, just type in the chat box or just raise your hand or come off of mute, and we can go through that as well. So what we, pharmacology. So we know this world where we're taking pills for things. So we have, the drugs that suppress symptoms. If I have a headache, I take a pill and the headache goes away. But did it really go away? Or did we, how do we find the cause? What's causing the headache? And as an engineer, naturopath, that's what I'm trying to understand is what's causing these issues in the body. A lot of times, believe it or not, it's emotional. But it could be, for headaches, for example. I had a client that had them and she took pills forever. I don't want to take drugs anymore. Why am I having these things? And what she figured out is that it was from the diet soda she was drinking. When she stopped that and stopped aspartame and some of the other, the unnatural sugars, the headaches went away. And so rather than just taking pills to mask symptoms, naturopaths, acupuncturists, all the natural health modalities really focus in on understanding the cause. And so let me just say up front that I'm a huge fan of the Western medical model. If you're in an accident and you're in some kind of an acute situation, they are fabulous at putting you back together again and very good at diagnosing things. But when we look at long-term chronic illnesses that people have over the years, that's where I think the holistic model tends to work best. So in my opinion, it's always been a question of why can't we all just play nice together and work together? Because there's a place for both of us in this world to help people with what they have going on in their health perspective. So time and a place for drugs. It could be if you're in some kind of severe depression, which there's a lot of that going on right now, you may need to be on drugs for a little while just to help you because we're in some pretty bizarre times right now, very, very stressful, or again, accidents and surgeries that come from that. But how do we move from world pharmacology back to where we started, pharmacology, where we're focused more on the earth and the sun and growing things that are going to help our bodies. So Reagan, just jump in. If anybody has questions or comments or whatever, just raise your hand. I see your videos. You can always raise your hand or something.
Of course.
Good. So moving to pharmacology, again, how do we eat more of the colors? So a lot of this is just choices. And a lot of times people just aren't aware of this. Why? Because if you're getting your information about health from the news, especially in the morning news or at night, you have to look at who's sponsoring that. And unlike me, who has the earth and the sun, it's probably not the broccoli and carrot lobby that's supporting those health information you're getting. It's usually drug companies that are supporting that. And so you're not going to get this kind of information. Ideally, what we want is the fruits and veggies. The darker the color, the better, the more potent that is for your body. So if I'm at the salad bar and I can pick, this iceberg lettuce versus the dark greens, always pick the dark. Always pick the darker fruits. So the berries are awesome. That's some of the best fruits you can have. Blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, absolutely powerful for your body. The darker greens are fantastic as well. Not to slight the other fruits out there, but people get excited about like, oh my God, I love Honeycrisp apples. Well, I bet you do, because there's like 19 grams of sugar in that thing. And so that's a lot of sugar. So what we're looking at, just as an example, when I talk about sugar, just to give you a context of this. So again, I'm a fan of the keto and antifungal diet, looking at targeting about 50 net carbs a day. And when I say net carbs, what I'm looking at is when you look at a package and you see This serving has 32 grams of carbohydrates per serving and 3 grams of fiber. You take 32 and you subtract 3 and you get 29 net carbs. You're looking for about 50 in a day. So when you eat breakfast, as an example, I'm a big fan of yogurt. I've been trying to go dairy free, so I'm doing coconut yogurt now. It's maybe, if you get the plain yogurts, it's maybe 4 or 5 grams of sugar. If you get any yogurt that has fruit in it already, it's going to be in the 20 or 30. And this is what you're trying to minimize. Why is that? Because sugar is what's going to cause your body to create a hormone called insulin. And when insulin continues to go up all the time to deal with this sugar, it leads to all these issues, chronic health issues around insulin resistance. So it's obesity, and it could be high cholesterol. It could be a whole lot of different things. But minimizing that sugar, I think, is one of the key things you can do. And I'm, of course, greatly oversimplifying this, but I want you to get the main point around that, which is reducing that. So from a nutrition perspective, I want to get the raw materials in the body in a form that it understands. So we want carbs in the form of fruits and vegetables, veggies more than fruits because of the sugar piece. We want to get the proteins in the form of either plant-based if you're a vegetarian, or if you're going to eat meat, then you want to get the eggs and the grass-fed beef and free-range chickens. You want all that natural stuff, because if we look at the just typical foods that we might get, like chicken or beef, those things are not raised very healthy, and they're fed a lot of grains. And they, unfortunately, are going to lead that animal to not be as healthy. And when you eat it, you're not going to get what you need. So if you eat eggs, make sure you get good quality eggs. And there's lots of websites that have little rankings that'll show you what are the best ones to get. And then the fats world, you want to make sure you're eating fat, because this low-fat diet thing is not good. We need fat. Our brain is mostly fat. And all of the cells of our body, every cell has a fat layer around it. And when you don't give the body what it needs in that fat form, it's going to build it with whatever it can. And you don't want your body building these fat layers with plastic. So when you eat things like hydrogenated fats, and you'll see, trans fat or hydrogenated, that's the stuff you have to avoid, because it's more plastic than it is fat. But if that's all you're eating, your body will do its best to make healthy cells from that, and it's not going to do a good job. Does that make sense? How are we doing out there?
Yes, I think that makes sense. We're doing good. We did have a couple of questions come in. I had a question going back to the fruits and sugar. I don't know if this is something that parents just tell kids, when they're younger, or if it's actually valid. I was always told, don't eat fruit after 2 o'clock, because it's just going to break down into nothing and just be there like a tub of lard.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it always
I
made me
haven't heard that
nervous
one
to eat
before.
fruit after 2 o'clock.
I haven't heard that one before, but I do often speak about, normally when I go speak to groups, it's about travel wellness and, what are the things you can do to stay healthy on the road, which will be popular again one day. But today I'm talking about wellness. And so one of the key things that's important is it does matter the order that you eat your food. I've never heard of the timing on fruit, but when you go to eat like breakfast, for example, and you're like, in a hotel or whatever eating breakfast, you want to eat the fruit first. It's primarily water and a lot of the nutrients that you get. So when you eat it, it goes through your digestive system pretty fast. If I eat like bacon and eggs and then I eat the fruit last, the bacon and eggs takes a lot longer to be digested in your body. And so that fruit sits behind it and ferments and causes trouble. So eat fruit first and wait, 5 or 10 minutes before you eat anything else. But time of day, I don't know that it would matter a whole lot. Though it is usually better to eat fruit in the morning just because our bodies were kind of set up for that. I don't think it's a problem, but like eating fruit as a dessert is not really a great idea, because again, it goes through so fast and everything else takes longer. What else you got, Megan?
Yeah, we also have a lot of interest in what is the antifungal diet you were talking about.
So antifungal, so fungi turns out are the root cause of most chronic illness. And what are these critters? So our body is made up of, oh my God, billions of different microorganisms. We live in this rainforest of ecology in our body, especially in the gut microbiome, which is, your digestive system is like 90% of your immune system lives in there. So what happens is when we take things like antibiotics, they kill off all the bad guys. but they also kill off all the good guys and basically disrupt the whole rainforest in your body. And when they do that, the first thing that comes back is fungus, disproportionate to everything else. So you'll hear about things like candida, which is one of the top billing fungi. And so when candida comes in very high, it leads to all sorts of problems, not just skin rashes, but can be chronic, autoimmune, all kinds of different things. And so we all have it in our bodies, but when everything is in balance, then it's all checked up. And so this is the harmony we live in. You have to realize that our human cells are outnumbered at least 10 to 1 by bacterial cells. 10 to 1. So we are way more bacterial than we are like human cells, which is pretty fascinating. But there's this huge ecology in the body of all of this stuff in balance and in harmony. So when you single out one or two bad guys, it's kind of interesting to think about how we're doing that. I'm not going to go off on a political tirade today on COVID and whatnot, but the body is a big ecology. So anyway, fungi tend to be a problem. Fungi eat and live sugar. That's what they want. They thrive, and that's what they crave is sugar. So if you have a overabundance of fungus in your body because of taking a lot of antibiotics, that was my personal issue. I had a lot of sinus infections, so I did that. And when you feed the fungi and they overgrow, bad news. So antifungal diet is one that reduces the sugar, so it reduces the carbs. And so it's very similar, if not the same, to keto, because it's doing the same kinds of things. It'll help you lose weight, and it'll help reduce the fungus population in your body, especially if you do antifungal supplements as well. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. So toxins, where do we get them from? Well, you see in the background there's the air. It's hard to control that because you don't get to control it. It's breathing, and we wear masks, but that's not really going to help a whole lot in terms of the stuff you're breathing out of the air. And then there's the food that we eat, and of course the water that we drink, which is so critical. And you have to realize that in our bodies, we can only go for a few minutes without air, a few days without water, and a few weeks without food. So you got to look at the priorities here. And we're going to talk about breathing a little bit later, which is absolutely key and foundational, and we're not very good at it. Even though it's an autonomic response and we just breathe, we really need to focus on breathing better because it's a huge stress response, stress reliever. So we're going to talk about that one. The second one here is water. And when we look at water, we're looking to target at least half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 120 pounds, you should be drinking at least 60 ounces a day throughout the day, filtered water. And people go, oh, do I really have to go buy a filter? Well, and I say you either buy a filter or you are the filter. And we are already filtering enough stuff. So what about a Brita filter or the refrigerator filter? We can do better than that. This is so crucial for your body. This is the number one thing. If you can do nothing else from this presentation, start drinking more filtered water. So you can either, spring water is the best if you can get it. And I'm sure there's some springs nearby. Arkansas is kind of known for that. Get some natural spring water would be ideal. If not, a reverse osmosis filter. I use a Berkey filter, B-E-R-K-E-Y. Some of these are on my website. If you go in the lower left corner there, you'll see A Life Balance is my website. If you click on products, you can see some of the things I'm talking about. It's a link over to Amazon for the Berkey filter, which is a great gravity filter. So drinking filtered water, one of the best things that you can do for your body. And then we'll obviously talk more about food. So as I'm moving in here, let me mention one other thing, a way to connect with me. And I'm going to refer to some of these documents as I go throughout this presentation. If you'd like to get this deck, go to kiwilive.com. Just type in kiwilive.com and type in the word travel. And then it'll ask you if you want to be on my email list. I send emails maybe once a month, really maybe once every 3 months now. But I will connect with you one day, or you can just say in. I don't want to be on your email list, and that's okay. I'm just going to share this content with you. So go to kiwilive.com, type in the word travel, and let's connect there. Please do that by tonight, by midnight, because I'm presenting tomorrow at an MPI event here in Dallas, and I'm going to change the slides. So this deck won't be there. I have to change it in the morning. So go there tonight if you want to get this deck and the other pieces that are in there. So hydration here. Let me talk a little bit more about the water, and then we'll see if there's any questions. So I read this book a couple of years ago called Quench, fascinating book about water and hydration, written by an anthropologist, Gina Brea, and Dana Cohen is a medical doctor in New York. And so I'm reading this, and it's just fascinating. So, in our typical world today, I go to LinkedIn, I connect with Gina. Hey, love what you're doing. She responds back, hey, love what you're doing. Let's talk. So we chatted a bunch over the last few years. Neat lady. So as an anthropologist, she started studying people in the desert and was asking, how do these people stay hydrated? They're not, going around on camels carrying bottles of water. So they get the water from cactus, from plants. So we know there's 3 phases of water, the solid, liquid, and gas, but it turns out there's a 4th phase called structured water. And that's what's actually inside the cells of the body, also called gel water on the slide here. And so it looks like it's kind of jello-ish, but that's what's inside the cell, and that's how we hydrate. So when you drink water, a lot of times, like if you're in a dry climate, like in Vegas or something, you drink and you pee, and it's like a flash flood, and it's not getting inside your cells, and that's what you really want. And so if you can eat the plants, that's one way to do it. You can make juice is another way. It puts it in that structured form. Smoothies are great. The other thing you can do, one of my travel secrets, is to put chia seeds in your water, CHIA. About a tablespoon of chia seeds in a bottle of water. Let it sit for 20 minutes or so, and those things will, kind of swell up like sponges. It converts it into this form of gel water that's more absorbable, and also adds in some omega-3 fats and other fats that are beneficial for you. The other thing is getting water in your body, so physically in your mouth or to get it inside. But then secondly is micro movements. How do we move it around to the cells? So it's key to do just something, moving your arms, moving your legs, just movements. It doesn't have to be massive exercise, but these massive micro movements throughout the day move the water through the fascia. The fascia is this layer right under the skin. That's where there's all of these tubules that connect the body and help hydrate. And when you're hydrated, many good things can happen. By and large, we are about probably 90% dehydrated as a people. People just don't get enough water, period. And so as you're home now, for a lot of people, they're like, oh, especially when you're traveling, you don't want to drink a lot because you don't have to find bathrooms, but you're at home. So drink as much as you can and get this filtered water, and that will help you in a big way. Are there any questions or anything come up, Megan, so far?
Yes, we have a fair amount of questions that have popped up.
Okay.
A lot of them surround the keto diet.
Okay.
So a lot of people, and I'm sure you've seen it and heard about it too, but a lot of people have heard some negative things about keto. So they were wondering if it actually is bad for your cardiac health, if it puts strain on your heart, things of that nature, and if it actually doesn't allow for enough whole food plants. What are your thoughts and opinions on that?
Well, my opinion, and again, that's when I do Q&O, I do questions and opinions instead of questions and answers. I give you my opinion. So there's a modified keto. The guy that I follow is Eric Berg, ERIC, and then BERG, Dr. Eric Berg. He's got like 3,000 videos, and he's got a whole ton of them on keto that you can watch and get the background. So I think keto is much more strict if you do, 20 grams. I don't know how much they do. It's really small, but he does like 50 to 60 grams, which I think is reasonable. So for me, I don't really count. I just focus on eliminating all of the processed carbs. So take out the sugar, take out the grains, which are one metabolic step away from sugar, take out the starches, the potatoes, and focus on eating plants and meat. You don't have to eat a ton of it. That's the problem with all these different diet formats is like, well, people go, well, I'm vegan. And you go, oh, that must be so healthy. Well, you know what? Spaghetti and pasta and candy bars and sodas are all vegan. So there's choices in there. When people say keto, they're thinking you got to eat 5 steaks a day. You don't. Meat and protein is good for you. The fats are good. I mean, my favorite fruit is avocado, and I love them, and coconut milk and coconut water and all those things. So focus on the things that are what kind of the big macro view of it instead of getting into the details would be my thoughts around keto. But, for some people, it doesn't work, just like a lot of things. We're all individuals. So for some people, they can do fasting. I can't do fasting. Intermittent fasting I can do, and we'll talk about that. Very important. But just try it and see if it works for you. Give it, a couple of weeks. What else, Megan?
Yeah. You mentioned that you are trying to do dairy free. What are some non-dairy sugar, I guess low sugar slash keto suggestions that you might have for people?
Yeah, the low dairy. Well, dairy unfortunately causes a lot of mucus this time of year, with mountain cedar and all the pollens we have. And as we head into this cold season, that's one of the reasons I'm trying to eliminate it. And I never did a whole lot anyway, but there's so many options today. So you can get the DAIYA. Daya is a brand of, they have different cheeses that are made from nuts and from soy and from other different things that taste pretty good, but they don't have dairy in them. Specifically, we're looking at the different casein and things like that cause problems in our body from a food sensitivity perspective. Again, I'm doing coconut milk yogurt. So I love yogurt. I do in the morning, many days I do yogurt with blueberries, raspberries. Now I have pomegranates. I add chia seeds, hemp seeds, a little bit of honey, not much, and coconut flakes and walnuts. And I love that. I mean, it's awesome. I do omelets a lot, veggie omelets, spinach omelets, and just put in that Daya cheese. There's vegan cheese and vegan butter. There's so many different options today, and I suspect those are available to you. What else?
Great. And we'll do a couple more at the moment, and then we'll keep going just so we don't run out of time. But I'll make sure to get to everybody's questions, even if it's at the very end. So going back from at the very beginning, these came in a little after when we started moving on. Going back to the fruit, are bananas good? Are they bad? Are they too sugary? And then going with the sugar, Beth had a question about what sugars are best, high fructose corn syrup versus regular sugar, things of that nature.
So when we look at the fungi, again, I focus on that. So, it turns out that, and when I was in IBM, 17 years ago, I took a leave of absence for IBM. I went to work with a guy that has a TV show on health. And you guys may know him because he's pretty popular in Arkansas. His name's Doug Kaufman. And Doug's had a TV show for a long time, and he is a fungal expert. His show is called Know the Cause, KNOWTHECAUSE. So knowthecause.com. Go look him up because he's got Facebook shows and videos, tons of great information. He's a very entertaining host. But I learned all about fungus from him and all the books that he had written. There are a bunch of different foods that are universally fungally contaminated, unfortunately, that contribute to us. One of them is bananas. They're just fungally contaminated. The other one is corn and peanuts. Peanuts are not nuts, they're lentils, but they're just fungally contaminated. So rather than eating peanut butter, I would opt for almond butter or cashew butter. And bananas, yes, not only are they fungally contaminated, but they're very high in sugar, very high in the glycemic index. And so that's going to contribute to the fungi thing overload in your body. Not to say you can never have these things, because I don't like to classify things as good or bad unless they need to be. So sugar, straight up, bad. High fructose corn syrup, really bad. That is like sugar on steroids and just jacks with your body in a big way. Plus, it's got corn as the derivatives to get the fungal side as well. So, yeah, you got to look at focusing on the things that are lower glycemic index, GLYCEMIC. You can just do a search on Google on glycemic index, and you'll get a list of all the foods. So the best sugars to eat are the natural one. Stevia is one of the best. It's a plant. I just bought some this weekend and planted it in I have a tower garden, which is an aeroponic tower that grows a bunch of different herbs and veggies in there. You can see that from my website. It's under the Juice Plus thing. It's pretty fascinating. But stevia is a plant. You get the leaves. You can put those in your shakes or whatever. One of the best these days, a couple of good ones, monk fruit. MONK, monk fruit is a very kind of high sweetish, but it's very low in the carbs area. And then erythritol is another name, ERY. Erythritol. So look that one up as well. Agave be okay, but it's kind of high on the sugar side, and honey is good in moderation. Avoid the high fructose corn syrup as much as you can, avoid it, just like you would trans fats, because those are really, really just bad. So those are big ones. So yeah, let's come back to some of those. And let me get on, because I got like a zillion slides here. I want to talk about some of this other stuff that I didn't talk about for MPI, Reagan, that I want to hit with you guys.
Yeah, you got it.
Because it's all going to play in. Sorry?
I was just saying you got it.
Okay, good. So has anybody ever heard of this book, Hidden Messages in Water? Raise your hand or give me an insight. I want to hear what people heard of this before. So this guy, Masaru Emoto, is a doctor out of Japan. He passed away a few years ago. But he did this research study looking at water and water crystals, as you see on the cover of his first book there. And that's what water crystals look like. Isn't that beautiful? And it's got 6 sides, 6 points, but it doesn't always look that way. How many people have heard of it, Reagan?
We have a few people that have not. I don't see anyone that has heard of this book.
Okay, good.
Personally,
That's what I'm here to do, is open your mind to some things you may not have seen before. So he went and studied. He said, okay, you know what, since people are 70% water, you know, most of our body is water. When we do, you know, cremation, you take out all the water and you're not left with a lot, right? So we're mostly water. Same thing with the earth. And how can we heal our planet and ourselves? By focusing on this water. So he studied water molecules, and he built this special room at very low temperatures, below freezing, with a microscope, and he would look at the water crystals to see what they look like. So what he did is he went and he would get water from a pure source in Japan. Isn't that beautiful? And he would take that and he'd look under the microscope and he'd see this water. And then he went to a polluted river nearby and pulled that water out, and you could see it has no structure. It doesn't have any, there's no beauty in there. There's no energy in there. Now here's the key point. So I'm going to ask you to open your mind on this, because this is going to sound pretty strange, but I'm going to bring it back around and again, just get you to think about this. What he did is he took that water from the polluted river and he put it in bottles and he gave it to the Shinto priest. Shinto was the primary religion, if you will, of Japan. And they prayed on this water. And when they prayed on it, it turned into that crystalline structure through prayer. And you think about, if we're water and our food is water, why do we say grace before we eat? You know, even in Christianity, we always focus on saying grace. And when you do that and you pray on your water, is it possible that we could be helping to convert the water that's in that food that we're about to eat into a form that's better for our bodies? Just something to ponder on. He would take that water again and he'd put it in bottles between speakers, and he'd play classical music and it would look like this. And when he played heavy metal or rock and roll, it would look like that. It would blow up. So everything is energy. Everything is energy. And that would be a whole other talk to talk about that, because that's the world that I deal in my practice, is dealing with energy medicine, because that's who we are at our core, is energy. Our bodies are more energetic than they are biochemical. And so when you surround yourself in frequencies of music, music is an energy, and that hits our bodies, just like, lights are the things you look at, the things you think about. All of this impacts who we are. So when he take water and he would put it in these jars, and you could put labels on the outside, and if he put things like hatred and killing on the labels on the outside, the water would look like the polluted water version. And then when he put positive words there, it would change that. The key in all of this for us, the takeaway for you, is the power of your thoughts, because prayer is a lot of time is our thoughts. How do we speak to ourselves? And so think about that. When we think positive thoughts, how is that impacting our overall health and wellness? And when we think negative thoughts, what is that doing? This was all highlighted in a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix, What the Bleep Do We Know? And there was a sequel. But it stars Marley Matlin, and it goes into this world of quantum physics, which isn't as scary as you think. It's really pretty fascinating, some of the things that are in there. And this stuff has been known for 70, 80 years, and it's just not getting out there. Why? We're going to talk about that. So it's on your head. Has anybody ever had this diagnosis? I did. I told you that I did. A lot of times it can be true. There's a book called It's All in Your Head by Hal Huggins that talks about teeth. So when we look at the body, there's all the cardiovascular and nervous system and all the things that we know and doctors know about in the body, but there's also a fiber optic system of energy channels, and they all run through the body. They're called the meridian system, and that's how acupuncturists work. Chinese medicine focuses on the meridian system, and how do we open those channels to make sure that energy is flowing. All of those channels run through your teeth. So if there's an issue with your teeth, it could be impacting blockage in the channel. It could manifest as liver or pancreas or some other issue in your body, and you never know it. So if you have amalgam fillings, amalgams are those silver black fillings. They have a lot of mercury, which is one of the most toxic substances around. So if you have those, I would encourage you to get them out, if at all possible. And what you want to do is make sure you go to a holistic dentist or biological dentist. The way you find them is on a website called IAOMT, IAO, M as in Mary, T.org, IAOMT.org. And just put in your zip code and you'll see a list of the ones that are available, and have them check that out. your amalgams and get those things out by the way that knows what they're doing. The other one is root canals. So if you've had a bunch of root canals, they've been there a long time, and you're having some health issues, there could be a link, and there's no doctor that's going to ever ask you that. But there's a huge connection between root canals, because if there's an infection under that root canal, your body can't heal it, and it can cause all kinds of things downstream. So when I see clients, and I work with clients all over the world, and I'm going to do a special offer for you guys if anybody's interested in seeing me as a client. I always ask them about their teeth at the first session, because most doctors don't, and there's just can be a huge link. Not to scare you if you have amalgams or root canals, but there could be a link if you have other chronic health issues. So if you've been to 5 or so doctors and they can't figure out what's wrong with you, look into this. So let's talk a little bit about more stressors on the body. So electromagnetic fields. Back in the year 1900, we had barely any electromagnetic fields on the planet. You could see just a few. This was in year 2000. We had, incorporating all of these. And today we have 4G and 5G networks, Wi-Fi, and just all of these electromagnetic fields that impact our body. Because remember, we're more electrical than we are biochemical. And so just sitting in a sea of Wi-Fi all day is not very good for us. Having your cell phone attached to your head or on your body all day, not so good, and it stresses us out. One of the best ways to resolve this and help your body to balance that and the cell phone use is by getting bare feet on the earth. This is how you ground and move that out of your body. So if you can get on the bare feet on the earth for 20 minutes a day, it's going to help in so many different ways. It's one of my top secrets for jet lag is to get 30 minutes on the bare feet on the earth when you get to your destination. And it will help sink you into that time zone and balance inflammation in your body. And again, this is from one of my sponsors, the earth. It's free. Getting on the earth is good. Wet earth is even better. Getting in the ocean is best, because now you're in that mineral water connected to the planet. Really important to help balance you. And today, highly recommended. Get outside and do that. So let me talk about boost your immune system real quick here. Are there other major burning questions, Reagan?
Just one about what are your thoughts about going to those different vitamin IV infusion shops?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So vitamins are a good thing, but remember they're isolates. And so when we look at, like when I talk about, the people say, do you like vitamins? Yes and no. I use supplements, and supplements are meant to supplement your diet. The one that I recommended for a long time is Juice Plus. If you've ever heard of that. If not, again, it's on my website. It's fruits and vegetables in a capsule. Our body knows how to process. So when you look at this picture with fruits and vegetables, you don't get 25 milligrams of this and 200 IUs of that. You get what's in that plant, and your body knows how to process it, as opposed to a supplement that's usually made from synthetically made from some kind of petroleum product. So I'm not a huge fan of just isolates per se. So when you look at vitamin C, people think of ascorbic acid. That's just one compound. It's a big one, but it's not the same as vitamin C that has all of these bioflavonoids around it. So when you eat an orange, or eating an orange, you're going to get maybe 80 milligrams of vitamin C, but you get all of the bioflavonoids. It's the equivalent of 2,000 or 3,000 milligrams of ascorbic acid. And so I always do whole food supplements. That's why I like Juice Plus. In my practice, I use a line called Standard Process, as well as another professional line, Premier Research, that really focuses on this whole food concept. But if you're going to do isolates and the IVs, you just have to be careful. And what is the source and the quality of what you're putting in? They can be beneficial. Certainly vitamin C can be very beneficial. I have a friend that does colloidal silver, and there's a time and a place for those, but I think you'd rather get it in the way the body wants to get it in, which is through your food and through supplements that are whole food based, rather than in IV, because I don't think we were designed to be hooked up to IVs all the time. So that's just my thought, but it can be very beneficial depending on what's going on. So boosting your immune system, let's talk about this today, because this is the key where we are as we head into the winter season. So how do we prevent illnesses? Number one is stress and fear reduction. The more stress we have, the more our immune system goes down. Watching the news, therefore, is not good for your immune system. And what's going on in this political circus we call the government right now is one major stressor for everybody, not just in the US, all over the world. So keeping those down is key. Sugar, dairy, and wheat. The more you can keep those out of your system, the better your immune system is going to handle things. You know, flu season starts around now and it lasts till around February or March. Isn't it interesting how flu season starts right around Halloween, a huge sugar holiday? Goes through Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and Valentine's Day, all high sugar holidays, coupled with time when the sun in North America is a lot lower and we're not getting as much sunlight, and therefore we're not making as much vitamin D, which is really critical for our immune system. But avoid sugar, dairy, and wheat. We talked about filtered water. Lymph is just focus on moving to get that movement in your body. We talked about micro movements. Intermittent fasting is basically eating in a smaller window. It takes a lot of energy to digest food. So if I can minimize that time into maybe a 4 or 6 hour window, it leaves the rest of the time for the energy in my body to detox and cleanse. So, you know, when I'm doing intermittent fasting, I'll eat lunch around 12 or 1, eat dinner around 6, and not eat again until 12 or 1 the next day. Eating, again, focused on the good quality things and foods, not just, you know, eating the junk stuff. Exercise and movement, absolutely key. What is the best exercise? I'm going to ask you, type in the chat box, what is the best exercise? And we'll come back to that one. But movement is absolutely key for your immune system. So the action part is you're starting to feel sick. When you feel like, uh-oh, I'm feeling a scratchy throat, I'm starting to get sick, you've got to act quickly. You've got 4 to 6 hours, I would say, to do something when you start feeling sick. And by do something, I mean take supplements, use essential oils, do something to boost your immune system. Because your body's giving you clues, something's going on here. So we've got to act. This is not the time to go order stuff or go to the store. This is time to take the stuff you have on hand, and you need to have things on hand and with you all the time. Resting is key. Normally I'm advocating exercising and movement, but not when you're starting to feel sick. You need to rest and just power down and put all of your energy into helping your body heal. Take a nap, just rest as much as you can. And you see supplements here. I've listed some that are very helpful for the immune system in a variety of forms. I do have some specifics. Vitamin A. D, from the stuff I've studied, is the most powerful determinant of how COVID might impact you. The higher your D levels, the less seems to be the impact on our bodies. You need to be in the over 40 at least in your blood, measured in your blood. So if you haven't done that, if you go, I think on my website, Everlywell is a place you can order the blood test. It's like $50 to do a vitamin D test for you. They'll mail you a kit. You just do a finger stick, mail it back, and get your vitamin D. Or if you're going to your doctor, just ask them to add it to your blood test, whatever they're doing. Same with omega-3 fats. So important to measure and take those because they're so critical to our overall health. These other herbs in there, a lot of them are targeted at helping boost your immune system in a big way. So Graphis is a potent immune boosting herb and a critter killer from Asia. That's very important. So when you feel like you're getting sick, you don't take all of these, you just have the ones you have. If you don't have any of them, just get a clove of garlic and eat a lot of garlic or chew on a clove of garlic. That thing is incredibly antimicrobial. But the key part is avoiding the sugar, dairy, and wheat and acting on that. So any questions before I move on?
Yeah, just a couple quick ones, it seems. Beth asked about, and she doesn't know the official name or anything, but they're happy lights. She says, what do you think of those? They're supposed to help during the winter months.
Happy light? Yeah. Well, there are light systems that you can get. So yeah, we don't get enough sunlight, and especially where you're living. I mean, in Arkansas, it's like Dallas. We shouldn't be that as bad as it is in the north. But definitely good. Those can be really good. You just have to do research on them and try and get some that don't have a lot of EMFs, a lot of electromagnetic fields, magnetic fields given off. It's like getting in a tanning booth, which those can be okay if they're not a lot of EMFs that you're surrounded with. But yeah, that light is really important to help us with our mood and sleep and everything else. So it can be a good thing. I haven't seen that brand, so I don't know. Anything else?
Yes. Lindsay asks, with IF, does that throw off our blood sugar in the morning, therefore messing with hormones?
For some people, they say that it can, and there's, again, none of this stuff is, this is the answer, because everybody does a different thing. Like there's a lot of personal trainers that say you should eat 5 or 6 meals a day, keep your blood sugar stabilized. But it just depends. For some people, intermittent fasting just doesn't really mess with the blood sugar. I mean, it does in a good way. It helps to reduce insulin resistance and reduces that blood sugar number, but it doesn't cause problems. So again, you just have to experiment for you, and just try it for a week or so and see what you notice and see what you feel. Because when I first started, I thought I was going to be starving because I do hot yoga in the morning a lot, and I thought this is going to kill me, but it turns out I had more energy by not eating. So it's something to experiment with. So let me zip through. I got a couple more things here to cover. So what happened? Why do you not hear the stuff I'm talking about tonight? I gave you a clue earlier. The answer is money. And by the way, what was the answer to the best exercise? Did we get a bunch?
Oh, yes. A lot of people said walking. They love to go outside walking. A lot of people said just cardio and strength training. And then we had and what I feel is I'm like that too, is whatever you're gonna stick with, whatever you enjoy, swimming,
Exactly.
walking, whatever you're going to actually do.
That's the answer, is the one you'll do. That's the best exercise, the one you'll do. Walking is great. So yeah, everybody can walk. Again, it's free. So get out there, walk, move your arms, get them over your head, and do some things. But yeah, definitely. So why do we not hear about this? Unfortunately, money. So back in 1910, there's a study commission called the Flexner Report funded by Rockefeller and Carnegie, known for big money. They established science as the basis for modern medicine, and you're still seeing the effects of this 110 years later. They went into the pharmaceutical industry and they basically bought a bunch of money. They put a lot of money into the pharmaceutical industry and basically said that everything in the US was going to be drugs and surgery. They closed down all of the homeopathic, naturopathic schools and just funneled everything into that, standardizing on drugs and surgery instead of this. And so there's a great book on this called When Healing Becomes a Crime. It takes you to the beginning of the American Medical Association in 1910 when this was happening. I have a 10-page excerpt in that. If you go on that site that I told you, kiwilive.com, and type in travel, you can download that PDF document and just hit the highlights. It's a fascinating book, one of my favorites. So take a look at that. So I'm going to spend a little time on this concept. And this is talking about the mental health side of things. And we look at a lot of other people and we see, sometimes we look at speakers or we look at social media people and we just go, oh my God, look how perfect their life is. But I just want to share some personal things with you of this story that I've been on. I call this my pandemic retreat that I've never signed up for. And it's been quite a year. And it started, I'm going to tell you when it started, the day that changed my life. So there I was, I used to teach classes for IBM. I was doing a class in Nice, France, sitting outside and looking at this view over Monaco. It was a beautiful day. I'm looking at the Mediterranean. And you know that feeling when you're just in peace? Has anybody ever prayed for patience? You know what happens when you pray for patience? You get the longest lines and every opportunity to not be patient comes into your life. That's how this started. So I'm sitting here and I'm just like, God, I just feel so peaceful. And I heard this voice inside and said, John, what do you really want? And I said, I want peace at all times, like this. And the universe said, you need some storms. So that's when it started 8 years ago. I started seeing these road signs and blockages in my neighborhood. This was outside my office, and it was just detour signs, road closed. This was over the last year or so. And our kids, we have twins, and the kids went to college last fall. That was really hard, going from 2 to 0, and that led to, where are we in our life? And started with, this January with divorce, which is not a good place to be after 27 years of marriage. But it's kind of where life took us, and the pandemic came and my speaking business went away. And so I'm sitting there trying to figure out, how is this all playing in? And I just want to share that as a background, not to get into a trauma competition because there's some people going through horrible things this year, but just to give you some insights on some of the lessons that I've learned so far, and I'm still learning every day. So there were times this summer when I was sitting there going, I don't have a job. I've got 2 kids in college. I'm in the middle of divorce. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it was depressing, and it was in a really tough space. And I remember one day taking my daughter driving, and I was just like, I can't take this anymore. So I'm praying. We're walking around in a grocery store with Sprouts, and I'm just like, I can't take it anymore. So I'm praying, I need help. I need help. Please send help. And I looked up and I saw these water bottles that say, just breathe and choose happy. Who has that as a marketing slogan for water? But you know what? That was exactly what I needed to hear. And it's really about trusting the perfection of the universe. And I remember walking down the neighborhood and I saw kind of like my motto quote out of the Bible that says, be still and know that I'm God. Be still and know that I'm God. So this trust in the universe, trusting the flow, because where we are today, it's so uncertain for all of us, and everybody's situation is different. But most of the time, the stress comes because we are just buried in uncertainty. So the message here from this piece is really learning to trust. And every day, this is something I'm working on and developing more and more as the universe keeps bringing me opportunities to surrender. So as I mentioned, the pandemic retreat, for me, it started with sitting outside. I didn't know what to do. So I'm sitting outside and I'd go inside and pray. And the answer, what am I supposed to do? And the answer was, you need to be still. Oh, okay. How long do I need to be still? Well, it turns out, a long time. So I'm sitting there with my cup of tea and watching the leaves and the trees for hours. And I looked out and I saw these weeds in my grass. And I thought, all right, I'm going to start pulling weeds. And I started visualizing these things as thought patterns that no longer serve me. Negative thinking, and who am I, and what's going on in my life. And so I would pull these out day by day, and I'd go across the whole thing. And every time I did, I would envision pulling out these thought patterns that no longer serve me to help me to grow better. And a couple of months later, all the weeds were gone, and then the good stuff comes back in. It's another analogy to the microbiome and in our bodies. Same kind of thing, is pulling out the critters that don't serve us and putting in the good things. But in this case, it's managing our thoughts that's key. They can be really runaway, and I have a very busy brain, and it's been a wild west up there, and I've really been focused on being still and focusing in on now and being here and getting out of worry and anxiety about the future or thinking about the past, because it's so key for us. So managing those thoughts, and the best way to do it, breathing. So I talked earlier about this. We've got to focus on, think about visualizing a balloon in your stomach. And when you take a deep breath, your chest doesn't move. And you just take a deep breath and your stomach inflates. And actually below, 2-3 inches below your belly button. When you do that, it activates the diaphragm, activates the vagus nerve, and it helps calm you down. So if you'll take 4, inhale on a count of 4, hold for 4, and exhale on a count of 6. Slower exhale, just do 3 of those and it'll calm you down. But meditating, praying, so important. The other part in here is just looking at a couple of different things. One is around just the gifts appearing in our lives and the timing that it occurs. The other big one for me was in value. As a recovering overachiever perfectionist, it was hard for me to find value in me when I'm not doing anything. I don't have a job. I'm not going to be a husband. I'm still a dad. But what is your role and who are you? Depending on what's going on in your life, for many people, you've got to redefine who you are and what is the value. And the answer is, I am enough as I am right now. I am enough as I am right now. As I envision the future, I think about and visualize all the things I want to attract into my life. And so you put these orders in to the universe, praying to God, here's the things I want to attract. And I kind of likened it to this because when I moved into this new rental house, I was ordering 10 things a day, it seemed like, from Amazon. Stuff would show up at the door and I'm like, I have no idea what's here. But I was excited because I knew it was something I wanted because I ordered it. And it's kind of that way in our life when we put things out there that we really want to attract, and then you wait and you see it come back, and it's the perfect gift at the perfect time because you've asked for it and it will be delivered for you. So the balance in the storm here, again, is trusting this perfection, identifying the value of who you are, and managing those thoughts and words. Managing the thoughts and words. The words we speak are very powerful. The words we think are very powerful, especially what follows I am. So when you say I am healthy, you don't want to be putting negatives after that. So focusing on the positives is going to be key. So we talked about a bunch. So the 7 principles of natural health. From naturopathy, if you give your body these 7 things, and we talked about quite a bit of them today, I think almost all of them. Sunlight is one, that was my other sponsor I didn't mention a lot. You need to get in the sun. We talked about that with maybe the light, but getting in the sun with as much skin as possible, because the funky weather, I'm sure you have it like we do here, where it's 30 and it's 80. When it's a nice day, get out there and get that sunlight in your body between like 10 and 4 because we really need that rest we talked about, and I just talked about the emotional, spiritual side of things. So what changes will you make? Type in the chat box, what is the one thing you're going to do differently as a result of our time together tonight? I share this with you, and I share my personal story with you, again, just to help, because as we go through difficult things in our lives, the only reason I can think of to do that is so that we can become stronger and help and share with others so that they can become stronger and they can help and share with others. So what are the changes you're going to make? And I'd love for you to make an appointment with me. I have a special for you for this group. My first session is an hour and a half, usually $225. For you, it's $150. You can just email me and set up that time, and we can work remotely. There's my email address and my phone number. And there's, again, the Kiwi Live thing, a way to connect with me. And of course, if you travel or you know someone that travels that might be interested in that book, or they will be traveling one day, maybe for Christmas, might be something to give them as a thought in there. So, again, I'm just thankful to be here with you guys and share this. So let me, answer any other questions or thoughts that you might have, and then we can close out, Reagan.
Great. Right now, I'm not seeing any questions, but people are definitely responding to your question about what are the actions they're going to take.
Tell me.
One of them made me chuckle. Stop eating peanuts by the handful. That made me chuckle because sometimes I feel like I grab some nuts out of my pantry too, and I'm like, oh, these are delicious, and just keep eating them, and all of a sudden they're halfway gone.
Well, nuts are pretty good though, by the way. I mean, the walnuts, pecans, Brazil nuts. Did I miss any? Walnuts, pecans, Brazil. Those are some of the best ones, and almonds are okay. Yeah, so in moderation, because they are fats, but those are pretty good for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have getting outside, putting my feet on the actual ground and grass. A lot of people have said they're going to visit your website, research those reference books that you talked about, focus on filtered water, and reducing sugar intake. Awesome.
Well, yeah, I have a blog. Well, I have two websites because one's not enough. So this one is my John the Naturopath site, and I have a blog here, and then you can link to my speaker site, which is more speaker oriented with videos and things. I also have a YouTube channel, and so you can tap into my world through here. Take a look at some of the blog posts, because I try and share a lot of inspirational posts. A lot of the ones I share come from a site called Daily Om that I think is just brilliant, and I love her writing. So I just add my comments and then share it in there and post it on social media. But please connect with me on LinkedIn is my primary social media. I also have a Facebook page that I share with, and that's pretty much it. I do some Instagram, but not too many. But would love to connect with you and help however I can for you or anyone that you know of. The key here, again, is just to get ahead of this thing. There is, in terms of prevention, wellness it's not about an absence of disease. It's about the things we can do to give our body what it needs to be healthy, because that's who we're designed to be, is healthy beings. And you just have to, it takes work, it takes time like anything else. But first you have to know what to do and how to do it. And there's so much misinformation out there, it's tough. And not to say the stuff I'm telling you is all right. You have to do your homework. This is me based on 25 years of studying this stuff and sharing it with people and what works for me. And hopefully you'll find something of benefit in here for you.
Thanks so much, John. Oh, yeah. Somebody said they have a question they'd like to ask. Yeah, we have time. If
Sure.
anybody does need to pop off, of course, feel free to pop off. I am recording this. I will email you guys that were on the session today, the recording, so that you guys can listen to John again or go over any of the different questions we might have answered but weren't able to write down or something like that.
I want to see if
anybody has
smile,
to go.
Kristen, look happy over there. Let's pick on Kristen because there.
Thank you, John. This has been very helpful, especially for me today. So I actually had a hip replacement today.
Okay.
And I'm so much younger than the average age to have that. And so arthritis, trying to understand, they don't know really what caused it. So I know inflammation is likely a big cause of that. So I was just curious if you had any information around inflammation.
Yeah, inflammation is huge. That's the foundation of most of the chronic illness is, inflammation meaning, Latin from fire. And so how do we put that thing out? Well, you got to figure out what's causing it. A lot of times it's critters, a lot of times it's fungus. So I would know the cause, go look at Doug's website. You might get his book called The Fungus Link. Talk about that. If you're looking at resources on my website, if you look at, there's a tab called favorites. I have a lot of different books and videos that I reference there that might be of interest to you, to look through that. One of the other things that's important, Mary, from the hip side is the structure. So we can do all the supplements we want and lifestyle things, but I'm a huge fan of chiropractic. You've got to get a chiropractor to help line you up structurally, because your skeletal system is designed to hold you. And if it's off, it's going to cause all sorts of problems that you're not going to be able to supplement your way out of. So find a good chiropractor. The secret is you have to go when you're not in pain.
Yeah.
And acupuncture, same thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, perfect. Okay, any other thoughts?
I think that might be it.
Okay.
I'm trying to go through the chat, just make sure. Yeah, it looks like that's it. We had a whole bunch of different chat conversations, which is always great. I always like when the chat is super lively like that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. I think this was amazing. I always love when John is our speaker. He's always full of wonderful information and very, very relevant information. So I'm glad you guys were here for it. I will, like I said, sorry if you can hear my dog, she's crying because she wants to go out.
Right. World today.
She's crazy. But I am recording this and I will send it to everybody on this call today. And I will definitely get John's email for you guys and website so that you guys can just click on it and go see it whenever you need to.
Perfect. Please send me the link too, Reagan.
Yes, I will, of course.
Send me the file. That would be great.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, John, so much.
Thank you, Reagan. Good to see you again.
Bye.
Stay well.